The sweepstakes are over. Roki Sasaki is officially a Dodger.
Oh! Oh my goodness! Big Christmas has tied.
Hit well out to right center field. Jones still on the move, running out of room, and he makes it.
Hits one in the air, left center field, back it goes! Harper, the swing of his life! Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone! Gibby, meet Freddie! Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
All right, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of Hanging in the Dugout. This is episode 6 now, and it's been about a week to kind of like let things cool off and whatnot. And it pretty much did the exact opposite. Things really heated up in the past week. We got a lot of different free agency moves, a couple of trade rumors going on, and smaller but still pretty significant Hall of Fame class to dive into. With all that being said, I mean, I'm ready to go if you are, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time, right? We're 20-something days away from spring trading, and, the news finally broke that people are going to, stop holding out, and teams want to actually sign players now. Teams other than the Dodgers want to sign players, which is good for baseball. But the Dodgers...
They still had their hand in. Yeah, they still had their hand in the mix.
They're hitting a decent amount, so I'm ready to jump into it.
Yeah. To kick things off, I mean, I know we've talked about him a lot recently, but every single time we've talked about him and thought that's kind of the end of things for now, there seems to be another thing popping up surrounding him. That's Vlad Guerrero Jr. So obviously the contract disputes between him and Toronto have kind of stalled, but the trade talks a little bit more have picked up. More significantly being that the Mets were actually trying to make a run at him, but the Blue Jays said that they weren't really interested in either what they were selling or just getting rid of Vlad entirely. So I guess kind of my question around Vlad is, what exactly would the deal look like for him necessarily? And does it remind you of like any kind of 1-year rental that we've seen kind of in the past year, if that's the case?
Well, it was reported that they want a Juan Soto type deal. Now, I don't think they're going to get that, but, I think Brett Beatty's in the mix. I could see Ronnie Mauricio in the mix. It's interesting. I mean, you have to give up something, but if I'm the Mets, if I'm giving up a decent amount of value, I need Vladdy long term. So I can't do this deal unless he's like, all right, if I get traded, I'm signing. Like, it needs to be definite. So I can't see the Mets doing just for a 1-year rental, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, I don't know. Cohen's been pretty aggressive with a lot of stuff in recent years since he's kind of taken more lead of the ownership and whatnot. I think the big name that the Mets could realistically throw in here is Ryan Clifford, their first baseman. It's a substitute for Vlad at first, probably not ready yet, so you'd have to fill someone else in there for the time being, but Clifford's got a lot of pop from the first base position, and he actually has a decent glove. So I think they wouldn't move on from Acuna because they see a lot of potential in him, and for good reason. Luis Angel is a very good prospect that they have in their system. But if they were to do anything, and if Cohen's going to be as aggressive as I think he would be in trying to pursue like a Vlad kind of deal, Clifford is probably the gateway or the main piece for better terms to that becoming more of a reality. But kind of like you said, I don't really see it happening.
I mean, you wonder, like, I think Ronnie, if I'm a team, I want Ronnie Mauricio in the deal. But I think also in Cohen spending all the money, you can't have two big contracts on the team. Like, I mean, you can't have, $761 and maybe a $500 million contract on the payroll, plus Lindor's 3-something.
Yeah, I mean, you already have a lot on that payroll. It'd be kind of hard to add Vladdy on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to fill other position needs. I mean, the Mets need help at starting pitching. They need help in the back end of the bullpen. You can't just, unload on offense. You need defense as well. So
honestly, though, like, I don't really see the Blue Jays moving on from him at all. I think the most realistic possibility here is that he just ends up walking in free agency. I don't think it's that any team wouldn't want to go out and get him, because I think Vlad's a very desirable acquisition to make for any team that even's thinking about contending. But I'm not sure if anyone is willing to meet the asking price that the Blue Jays are trying to throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, how far apart are they? Like, how far is that $100 million that was reported that we talked about? Like, how much is that? Because, if Vlad's looking for 450, 500 mil, if he has a big season, we saw this with Soto, he could go up, in contract.
Right.
So it could be maybe 600, which would be pretty nuts, but that's where the money is right now with the TV deals and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you're going to trade for him, you got to sign him long term. You can't just do a 1-year rental.
Yeah, I agree. This did just actually pop in my head just now thinking about it, as we've also talked about before, like the Padres actually shopping Cease around. What do you think about a potential deal where Cease ends up going to Toronto in exchange for Vlad and, of course, other stuff in general, but that would be the headlining of the two, Cease being the main piece going back to Toronto for Vlad?
It would be interesting, but what else?
I think that would be really good for San Diego, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, but, we talk about big contracts. You also have Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis with big contracts. So,
right.
I mean, I think starting pitching is premium in this day age. I mean, having a starter that can go at least 6 innings and only give up a run or two. I mean, that's great starting pitching. So, it depends on what, I guess, the Padres would get back. I mean, we heard about Luis Ariz, maybe he's in there.
I could see I could see the Blue Jays trying to ask to throw him in there just so they have the same thing with Clifford, right? If he was sent over, he probably won't be ready yet by the time you get him. So you get Ariz over there in a San Diego deal, you have a guy that can play first base at a lot smaller contract than what Vladdy is, and so you can take on what Cease is already making. And to bring back to your point, I think the Padres could be able to handle a long-term deal for Vladdy better than the Mets could, just because of how those big contracts kind of scale up against one another. The amount of Tatis and Machado doesn't even come close to what Lindor and Soto add up to. So I think if anything, the Padres would probably be the one team I could see maybe making a deal for him. But I'm more kind of on the side of Vlad. He's just not going anywhere, and he's going to end up being a big fish in the pond for the free agency class next year.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the headliner of it, and we'll be we're looking out for other free agents this year. We'll be looking out for him.
Yeah.
Still talking about the Mets, we have Jesse Winker going back to the Mets on a 1-year, $8 million deal. Dylan, how do we like this?
Do you have 2 hours? No.
Honestly, I think it's a good job by the Mets keeping Jesse Winker around. Wasn't the best for them in the regular season, but he had a pretty good postseason for them, and I think he's just overall a guy that brings a lot of energy and a lot of just attitude, honestly, to this Mets lineup. So I love that they brought him back, especially with Pete looking elsewhere. I think it remains some of the power in that lineup to keep that team going a little bit. I like it. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good pivot move because you had to pivot off Alonso. With us being 20-something days away from spring training, you have to get these deals done. And I like him going back to the Mets. I think he's very versatile offensively. You can put him wherever in the outfield. You can mess around with him a little bit. The bat is okay, but I mean he brought a lot of energy for that Mets team, and definitely in that Milwaukee series. So I like it for the Mets, but.
Obviously, looking at the splits between the time he spent with Washington and the time he spent with New York, he was a lot better in the nation's capital. He obviously played more games there too, but just from the sample size alone, the OPS was a whole 100 points over when he was with Washington compared to New York. But kind of like I said, he found a stroke in the playoffs there, where 2 triples and a home run that gave him an OPS over 1,000. I mean, if he can pick that back up and give the Mets a full season of that wherever he ends up playing, kind of like you said with the versatility, whether that's having to play the outfield or sliding in that DH spot. I think Winker's a very solid kind of platoon guy off the bench that you can use as a righty killer and power bat in like a pinch hit scenario. I think for the Mets, it's a pretty solid move.
Yeah, I mean, I like, it's only a 1-year deal. It's $8 million. I know that's a lot of money, but in contract wise, we kind of look at that as all right. Well, it's it's kind of like a prove it. It's it's good for the team. So I mean, I like it. I agree. The energy. He was good in the playoffs. But you just hope it can transfer in a lot more games and a bigger sample size in the regular season.
I mean, energy-wise, that one clip of him has been circling for pretty much their second half of the season where he had a walk-off home run, chucks his helmet down the first baseline, and just pretty much screams around the bases. The Mets need that.
Yeah, I think I've seen that on Twitter like almost every other day. Like it's on Twitter feed. But I mean, he was pretty good in the nation's capital. So you just hope he can continue it over in Queens.
Okay, now, let's not beat around it anymore. The sweepstakes are over. Roki Sasaki is officially a Dodger. Like, how? How do they keep building this super team out in Hollywood? Like, you can just look at his numbers without seeing any film and think this kid is like the greatest 23-year-old we haven't seen yet on like a full-time stage. He hasn't ever had an ERA over 2.5 for an entire season. And I mean, we saw the sample size at the World Baseball Classic. His fastball can get up to 100. He has 4 or 5 different pitches he can mix in with that. Like, he is absolutely ridiculous. And now he's on the most stacked team in the major leagues. Like, how much better can the Dodgers get? And I mean, like, I know I sound like I'm complaining about it a little bit, but like, the Dodgers is where he wanted to go. Like, he said it in the interview multiple times. Like, it wasn't necessarily about the money. It wasn't about the players that share his culture on the team. It was where he felt most at home, the best fit, and where he thought he could develop the best. Honestly, the Dodgers have a good reputation for that. Outside of some of like the pitcher arm injuries that they've had, they know how to develop talent and they know how to hold on to it and retain it. So like, I mean, I just don't know. Like, we saw the graphic for what their projected rotation is, the amount of Cy Young's MVPs that are already in there, and it's not even including Kershaw. Like, the deal that they got him for is just, it's ridiculous, dude. Like, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's ridiculous. I mean, apparently they've been recruiting him since he was in high school. I know I saw from Jim Bauman that teams were a little upset and they were complaining to the commissioner's office.
They were trying to like
about a pre-cut deal
or something. Yeah.
I don't know how. Like, I mean, obviously they talked to him. I don't know. They had a pre-cut deal. I wouldn't think so. My thing was, we woke up. You woke up that Friday morning. It was like the Padres just pulled out. It was like, I was like, all right, well, he's either going to Toronto, and that's the biggest what if ever. So we knew where he was going. I feel
so bad for Toronto, man.
I mean, I feel bad for them, but the other thing is, like, I get why players don't want to go there. Yeah. Like, I mean, you have the Canadian government taking your money. It's cold. It's not the best place to play. Yeah, it's Canada. So, I mean, unfortunately, but, I mean, they have him for 6 years. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's ridiculous. I mean, this is probably the best team ever. After we'll talk about the 2 moves, I think ever. I mean, this team on paper is the best. You look at this team on paper. Speaking of Jack Flaherty, did you see what he said on Twitter? He said, "Don't get mad at the Dodgers because other teams aren't doing anything." So
I like that. I mean, it's the same kind of energy that I don't know if you watched Chris Rose at all, but I saw a video pop up on my Instagram the other day of him talking to Plouffe about just the Sasaki deal and whatnot, about how fans are like overreacting, saying, yeah, I'm not watching baseball anymore. Obviously, you guys are still going to tune into your own team and whatnot, and still going to watch baseball. Like, we'll see you March 27th for opening day. But I can understand where the frustration is coming from about how all these star-studded players are just continually going out west to LA. And it may just be an overreaction for the time being, but once the CBA does expire, I think it's after this season, right? Like 2026 winter meetings is when the next one is being discussed.
I think it gets reviewed. It's not fully expired until I believe the 2020 end of the 2027. I want to say,
okay. But
I could be wrong, but I know it does get reviewed.
Right, but like come these winter meetings, there could be some serious discussion about like what goes on with off-season transactions, because I'm sure that the fans aren't the only ones that are unhappy about this. I'm sure players can't be just like sitting back as they're getting ready for another season, seeing more and more people go to the Dodgers. So I don't know. His signing doesn't just impact what happens during the actual season. It impacts a whole lot more than that. And impacts the structure of baseball, I think, at the core of it. So as good of a signing as it is for the Dodgers, because I'm not going to just sit here and say, like, the Dodgers just picked him up because they're the Dodgers. No, like, he's a very valuable prospect, very highly touted prospect that chose to be in the best place for him. And that just happens to be the team that just won the World Series and already has a roster that has 4 Hall of Famers on it right now.
I mean,
three or 4?
They have him for 6 years in control, and he's only 23. Think about that. And 3 years, he gets paid the league minimum.
I mean, it helps them with all the deferred money that they got going out right now, so, I mean, I'll tell you that, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in those full 6 years, to see if, I mean, I don't really see the Dodgers trading him, but if something happens within those 6 years where he then all of a sudden, like, wants out or whatnot, or, like, his game from Japan translates over very well to the States and he's asking for an extension after year 2 or year 3. It'll be very interesting to see how his 6 years play out just from a money standpoint.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. You know, you talked about the CBA and stuff. Do you think baseball needs to put in the salary cap? Because I think it's coming. I think Rob Manfred has to, step in and he has to do something.
I don't think so. I don't think it'll get put in. And honestly, I don't want it to. As much as it is a pain to, like, keep waking up and seeing these notifications of, like, so-and-so went to the Dodgers. Like, it's true to a point. To an extent, it is true of, like, oh my gosh, how much money can they just keep spending? But it's also that there are a lot of teams that have owners that just don't put money into their own teams. Like, we talked about this before earlier in the offseason, about how the Guardians were one of the final 4 teams left, but were in, like, the bottom 10 of salary cap, and that's not because of like the market they have or because that was just the money that's given to them. Their owner is a multi-billionaire and just decides not to go out and spend and put money into the team. So I think before you have to look at the salary cap, I think Manfred has to stop being such like a people pleaser to all these owners and kind of push them to say, hey, if you don't want this to happen, kind of get off your butts and spend some of your own money here if you really care about the team. To answer your question basically in a short way, 1, no, I don't think a salary cap will be put in, and 2, no, I don't really think it should be or want it to be, because once that happens, I think baseball starts to blend in more to all the rest of the sports that we have, and it starts to lose some of its kind of uniqueness in a way. As maybe minor or major that decision is, I think that'll start to have it blend with other sports and lose some of the stuff that makes it stand out.
Do you think the luxury tax penalty gets reduced at all?
It could. If they don't go with the salary cap, I could definitely see them having the luxury tax be reduced a little bit.
My thing is, you have to get the owners to spend money. I mean,
that's Manfred's biggest goal at this point. Yeah. He's got to stop messing with the actual structure of the game and the rules of the game and how it flows, and start looking more at the behind the scenes stuff of how everything flows from that aspect, because what happens off the field a lot of the times translates to what's on the field. And in order to have an all-around kind of flowing game, you can't mess too much with what's on the field, because then nothing happens off. So Manfred's got to put his big boy pants on here and actually do something with these owners instead of just letting them have the luxury of just sitting back and doing nothing, because that's probably my biggest gripe with him as a commissioner, is that he's just such a people pleaser to the owners that he lets them get away with whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to hear this nonsense about a golden bat rule. That's not going to happen.
Dear God.
Like, stop it. You got to force the owners to do something at least. I mean, the fact that it's 20 days away from spring training and there's still plenty of free agents out there, big names as well, all-stars. None of them are, we got a lot of the news now, but I mean, it's like, this is getting ridiculous.
These are only a couple of dominoes that have fallen so far. Yeah. There's still tons of guys that are still out there.
There's plenty.
So, yeah.
I will say, did you see Sasaki went to the Lakers game?
Yeah, I saw the video with LeBron.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wants to be in L. He looks like he's happy in LA.
He looks comfortable. I mean,
that's the biggest thing for him, is just being comfortable.
Which, I mean, I did see some people being like, "Oh, so you were like kind of wrecked by the media over in Japan, and now you're just sitting courtside at a Lakers game." Something added up. I mean, honestly, he's 23. He's not that much older than you and me. So obviously he's still going to have some of that kind of off the field stuff he'll deal with, but he's still developing as a person and a man. So, I mean, some of that stuff will just come with it. But, I mean, I don't think people need to dig into stuff just as much. I would say, like, if he went to somewhere else, that video wouldn't have been a problem. But because he's a Dodger, that video is just, like, this whole big thing for people.
It sucks, but I'm not surprised, Like, I mean, I talked about this in the last episode. One of my hot takes was the Dodgers are going to struggle a little bit. And
how you feeling about it now?
I mean, I had to eat my words after what they've done this week, but it is still hard to go back-to-back in any type of sport. And, I mean,
it's 162 games. It's a grind. It's not going to be the same outcome that you have every year. Things happen. Injuries happen. Players regress out of nowhere. Like, I still think that your take can be upheld, so I wouldn't have it withered just yet.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but, I mean, they have one of the best teams on paper. I mean, so to talk about your A's, Dylan, you had high hopes for them in the last episode.
Still do.
They get José Leclerc on a 1 year, $10 million deal.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Honestly, I'm a big fan of it. It helps that bullpen. He was such a key piece to Texas's World Series run. And I know he didn't have a great year last year compared to that World Series run, but neither did the rest of the Rangers team. And honestly, like we literally just talked about, it's hard to go back-to-back. Teams struggle and teams suffer in a lot of ways. And the regression kind of hit for Leclerc last year. 4.3 ERA in 64 games. Just he gave up a couple more home runs than he normally does, but he also just gave up a lot more hits in general, which leads to more runs in those situations. So for Leclerc, I mean, I think he'll still be fine. Like the strikeout numbers for a reliever still decently high. He had 89 and 66 and 2/3. I think he'll be a good piece for that young and developing Oakland bullpen, and I think he could be a really good setup man for Mason Miller. So honestly, I really like the signing, and I really like the direction that the A's are kind of going and putting themselves in a position to be successful in 2025. But, I mean, you could feel completely opposite from me. But I'm such a huge A's fan going into the year that, I mean, I love the deal.
No, I mean, this was a good signing. I mean, to put Leclerc and Mason Miller in, to have Leclerc set up Mason Miller for that, the closure role. So Leclerc would pitch the 8th, Mason Miller pitched the 9th. But like you said, the ERA was up, but the strikeout numbers are still there. And, the stuff is still there. So I obviously want to see the ERA come down, but I'm not too worried about it. I like the move.
I wouldn't be.
I mean, it's when you approve it, I mean, I like it. I mean, it's only, I hate to say this, but it's a $10 million deal. It's not like it's something crazy, but I like it.
Feels
like
insane to say.
Yeah, but I like it for the Sacramento A's now. Can't call them Oakland anymore, so.
I hate John Fisher so much, dude.
Did you see they're going to wear a patch
I actually like the
on the
patch.
jersey.
Like, I don't like the second, but I like the bridge. It looks good on the jersey. It's still so stupid to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope they can, this rebuild or whatever they're doing, they do it right, and you don't just mess it up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll see.
I mean, this is honestly the time for Oakland to really revamp their team and rebuild it, because they're going to need to have some sort of a fan base when they get to Las Vegas, because they pretty much burnt that entire bridge with the city of Oakland. So if you can build up kind of a reputation again in Sacramento, that'll do really well for you in that transition to Las Vegas, just from a business standpoint, because obviously you need the fans to kind of help you bring in a little bit of money, and putting on good product on the field helps that. So I think if the A's kind of keep trending in this direction where they lock up some key players, give some already previously established players like decent sized deals like Severino, and then these little 1 year prove it deals, 1 year kind of like you still have it, but we can't lock you up long term kind of deal like with Leclerc, I think it puts them in a really good position to have a solid 3-4 years in Sacramento before they make the full transition to Las Vegas.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they have Lawrence Butler. They locked up Rooker long term. They made the move for Severino, and now with Kirk, I like it. I mean, they finally have a direction. It feels like.
Yeah, it almost kind of seems like they were just like holding back and waiting until they got out of the Coliseum to do it, which is really crappy on their part. But at least they are doing something now, not just kind of being like this bottomless pit of the AL West and the rest of the major league. That's just kind of like another one of the 30 teams that are around.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they actually want to try to be good. It's not like, oh, we're just going to lose every game. They actually have key pieces that are decent players, and they want to actually win.
All right, so keeping it in the reliever market here, Mets went out and picked up AJ Minter to help bolster that bullpen. Really good deal here for the Mets. Minter's been kind of a workhorse for the Braves, at least in 22 and 23. I think he dealt with some injury in 24. But, I mean, he's been rock solid for Atlanta the last 4 or 5 years pretty much. And I think this is a really good signing for the Mets, unfortunately for you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, one, it keeps him in the division, and two, he's also been a really good playoff performer, which I think the Mets kind of ran out of steam there in the pitching department, because they were throwing Phil Maton out there almost every game or every other game. So to bring Minter in, you add the lefty option, and you add a really solid setup guy in front of Diaz here that can also go out and get some saves for you if you need. So I really like this deal for the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best left-handed pitchers that's on the market in the reliever field right now. So that was on the market. But like you said, I mean, I hate for the Phils, but the NL East is going to be stacked either way, and it's going to help Minter set up Diaz. On the keynote, there is an opt-out after 1 year.
Okay.
So I mean, we see this all the time. There's always players ask for opt-outs and opt-ins.
Gives the player an option.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. I mean, I like it for the Mets. I thought they were going to go after another reliever that we'll talk about next. But I guess they weren't in the market for him, so they pivoted to this. So I like it. So, yeah. But speaking of that other reliever, we talk about Dodgers a lot, and well, they locked up Tanner Scott to a 4-year, $72 million deal. They also got Kirby Yates, apparently. So
forgot about the Kirby Yates thing, bro. I mean, $18 million a year for a reliever is more than some starters make. I understand Tanner Scott was like the best left-handed reliever that was on the market left, but 18 a year is kind of insane, in my opinion. Like, the numbers won't lie. He had a ridiculous year with both Miami and San Diego. But, I mean, come on, dude. Like, to me, it's a little bit of an overpay for him. But it's still a good signing for whoever got them. It just happens to be the Dodgers yet again.
I mean, but, the Cubs could have got him. They were in the market, but then they just, pulled out. So, I mean, we all hate it because, it's just adding to the Dodgers' greatest team ever on paper right now. but they also got Kirby Yates. Now, Kirby Yates had a 1.39 ERA last year, and no team wanted him. No team, apparently threw out offers, but the Dodgers saw it and were like, yes, we're going to go out and get him. And we haven't heard the numbers on the deal. I believe it's a 1-year deal. We just haven't heard the amount of money.
Yeah, I think they're still waiting for him to pass the physical for it to release the numbers.
Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. Plus what else they have in that? They have Tronian in that bullpen. That bullpen.
Tronian, Gratterall,
Yeah. You just need your starter to go, I guess the 6 starters. They have to go 5, and then the bullpen can just handle it. So, we
know what Kirby Yates can do. More in the late 2010s and whatnot, he turned into this kind of premier closer for people to have. And then he got hurt in 2020, didn't play 2021, and was kind of rocky coming back in 22 for the Rays. But the last 2 years, we kind of saw him return to form a little bit. And most specifically last year with the Rangers, where he had that low 1 ERA and had 33 saves at the age of 37. So obviously Kirby Yates still has something in the tank here, and now the Dodgers are just going to use it to their full potential there and bolster up that back end of the bullpen even more than they already had. So again, a good move by Los Angeles, because what haven't they done yet that's been a bad move at all? I'm running out of words to say about the Dodgers and what they're doing and how they're getting all these players and what their front office is doing to the point where I'm just repeating myself and spewing out garbage, because I can't say enough because of how well they're actually constructing their own roster. And it's also just that frustrating because our own teams aren't doing that. The Yankees have had a solid offseason. I'm not going to be upset with that. They've made some good moves, but they've also been kind of statues in others. So they've had a solid offseason. But Matt, for you, the Phillies haven't done that much. They got the Kepler signing, the Luzardo deal, and the Romano signing. That's pretty much it off the top of my head.
Yeah, but the Phillies are also paying a lot more in contracts this coming year.
Yeah.
So, but we talk not just our two teams. There is a bunch of other teams out there.
Right.
And get Kirby Yates.
27 other teams that are out there, not including us or the Dodgers.
What are we doing? How do you say GM or president of baseball operations and not be let me throw out an offer. Let me talk to this guy and see if we can get him on the team.
You don't even have to spend that much. To me, the deal is probably going to be in the $5 to $8 million range. That's not going to put a massive dent into your payroll. So
not doing your homework, in my opinion.
I really don't understand why the market for him wasn't bigger.
Yeah, relief pitching is such a premium in this day and age. Coming into a ball game and closing down that 9th inning is so big. I don't understand. Pittsburgh. You want to contend for a playoff spot. Get Kirby Yates.
Get a bat first. Don't even worry about Kirby Yates. Put someone in that lineup. You have McCutcheon hitting 4 right now in your projected 2025 lineup. You have him and Joey Bart going back-to-back in your 4 and 5, dude. That's a team that's winning 75 games at most, if you rock that out. Maybe more because of how Skeens and Jared Jones and Mitch Keller throw the ball. But, I do understand what you're saying.
It's just we give Dodgers criticism, but we shouldn't, because
they're doing it the best out of anybody in baseball.
They're doing it how it's supposed to be done. They're just, this
and they're finally getting the results that they've been looking for this entire time. So,
Chicago, if you want to lose out, go pivot to Kirby Yates.
Yeah. I did see that the Cubs are trying to get Ryan Presley, though, and he waived his trade clause. So there's no deal yet, but I could very well see something coming soon that Ryan Presley's heading to the Windy City to join his former teammate or possibly current teammate again in Kyle Tucker.
I did see that my dark horse from last episode, their Cincinnati Reds, are looking at Carlos Estevez. So talks were heating up. So
reliever market's getting a little hot.
Yeah, it's hot. Paul Sewald also.
Yep. He just signed with Cleveland
on a 1-year, $7 million deal. I love that move a lot. Arizona, might need a closer now. So
no,
I think they need some more bullpen help, maybe.
They might need one or two guys. They still have Thompson, Ginkel, and Martinez at the back end of that bullpen that are still pretty nails when it comes to closing down games. But honestly, Paul Sewald walking away is probably the best thing for them because he was solid for them at the beginning of the trade when Seattle moved him. But then we saw in the postseason, especially in the World Series, he struggled to close out games, and that translated into his 2024, where he had a 4.3 ERA, which is the worst year he's had since 2020 when he was on the Mets. So for the Diamondbacks, I think it's okay for them. For the Guardians, they have a great pitching lab over there. Sewald will be fine in that spot, and he'll be able to piggyback with Clase. Shoot, I'm forgetting the names of the other workhorses in that bullpen right now, but Hunter Gaddis, sorry, there it is. And the other guys that are in there that can really kind of make a mark on games just because of how dominant they are in the pen. So Sewald gets pushed into a really good group there that can definitely take his game to the next level again. For him in Cleveland, it's a match made in heaven, to be honest with you, because he can get his A-plus stuff back. For Arizona, you kind of let go of the piece that might have been holding you back a little bit because he only had 2 losses last year, so he wasn't like solely responsible for them losing a ton of games or anything like that, but he also wasn't the sole reason for them necessarily winning them or keeping it close, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't understand how, we blame like I said, we blame the Dodgers, but other teams have to make the moves.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it, but we'll see how the relief pitching pans out. There's still starting pitching out there. Jack Flaherty, Trevor Bauer, maybe. There's a bunch of names. We'll see what happens. So the pitching market is there.
So we got proved wrong again as we now look at Toronto again. Santander ended up making the move up north. He didn't stay put in Baltimore. They signed him to a 5-year, $90 million deal. This is a fantastic move for Toronto. And honestly, a huge win for them because of how much they've lost out on. Where do you think he fits in this Jays team right now?
I think he's going to be the DH. Key point to note, the Dodgers just can't do deferrals. The Blue Jays also deferred money in this deal.
Big time.
So, yeah, $50 million. So, I think he's going to be the DH. Now, we are hearing the rumblings of Pete Alonso heading up north.
Yeah.
So, I guess that moves Vladimir III.
There were reports earlier today that they were pretty close to getting a deal done. Not a done deal, but the terms and whatnot were kind of put out there. It was a little bit more than what the Mets were offering him. It's about 3 years for $75. But if that happens, what do you do? Because you can't. I feel like pushing out Vladdy from first almost pushes him out of that team entirely and just almost makes that decision clear for him. It's just like, I'm not coming back. You put Pete at first. You can't really put him in the DH spot because of Santander's liability in the outfield. What, if you're if you're Schneider, what are you doing there? Is that even the manager's name? Am I messing that up right now? I don't even remember right now. But what do you do as the manager there when you're penciling in that lineup card, trying to figure out where to put all those pieces? Because I'm sure Vlad will play third if you really ask him to, but that's not going to be what his desire is. Especially going into a contract here.
Yeah, apparently I saw that he would be open to going back to third. I don't see how. I think he's more of a first baseman than a third baseman. But
it's not even that. I think he's done so well at first. His glove has steadily improved every single year. He's been in Gold Glove talks. I think that Vlad should stay at first. I don't really think there's any need to push him out, but if you're going to go sign Pete, that's probably the best option for you, too. And with that might mean pushing Vlad out of your organization entirely as well. So it could be a very kind of win-lose deal here for Toronto that they get a power hitter and Pete to kind of elevate the lineup for a year or so. But what about the future with Vlad? That's just more kind of how my thought process is going right now.
It's confusing. It's definitely confusing. Especially that we're hearing the reports that the deal's almost done. Where the terms are almost done. With Santander, do you think his numbers that Toronto ballpark is probably a little bit bigger than Baltimore, I think.
In some ways, yes, but in other ways, I mean, you have that giant left field that they finally moved in Baltimore,
Yeah.
so there could be potentially like a bunch of those flyouts that he could have had from the right side to left field last year. That could be home runs in Rogers Center, but it's very hard to replicate a 44 home run season. But I think he still has the pop and the power to have anywhere from like 30, 35 to that 45, maybe even 50 range again, depending on how he keeps swinging the stick. But for the Blue Jays, it's a really good addition to the lineup, and hopefully is just like a good power hitter and a good run driver that can elevate the lineup that much more and hopefully get them back to a spot where they can contend again.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the future is the big question. Like how this is going to look down the line. Because if they sign Pete, you kind of think they're moving on from Vlad. But, I feel like that's the only thing. But I don't think the Mets, I think the Mets might throw in a final offer to Pete. Yeah, I know they pivot, but I could see the Mets still trying to revisit the conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw today that Houston Astros are revisiting conversations with Alex Bregman. Yeah, it's not likely, but, never know. So, but, I mean, we'll see. But heading out west, Tim Anderson has signed a minor league deal with the Angels. He hasn't been the same since J-Ram gave him the knockout blow.
Oh, my God. Oh,
so,
I'm sorry, dude. Just Tim Anderson news in 2025 doesn't even seem like a real headline at this point. But yeah, he's back in the majors with the Angels. Honestly, that's the most fitting thing I could have probably thought of. Yeah, Tim was literally a guy 3 years ago who was in batting title conversations. And now he was a guy that couldn't even hit over 200 when he was with the Marlins this year and got DFA'd.
It was after the knockout punch. He couldn't do anything.
J-Ram quite literally ended his career with a right hook.
So, I don't know. What are the Angels? That Angels team.
It's a great way to put it. Honestly, there's no answer to that question. It's just, what are the Angels?
Yeah, I mean, but it's like they got Soler earlier this offseason. It's like this.
It's a decent power upgrade.
No, but do you think at some point you're just going to kind of blow it up a little bit?
Well, I mean, if you were going to do that, you would have traded Mike Trout 4 years ago. But now you're at a point where you're pretty much just sitting through the rest of his contract because he keeps getting hurt and refuses to leave. And, his asking price is dying down. So, I mean, they're in a spot where they just kind of have to thug it out here a little bit and wait it out. So, I mean.
Yeah. But the NL East got more stacked. The Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, Braves got Profar.
I'm not happy about this one.
I love this deal. I know you don't.
Do not. Oh, man.
3 years for $42 million to get the former first overall pick. I love it. I love it, dude. He's coming off his best year. It's him, Harris, Acuna, right?
Yep.
Dude, that's a good freaking outfield right there.
Told you, dude. Braves strike again, man.
I don't know what happened between the rest of his 11-year career and this year, but he figured something out, and he was a very key piece to the Padres lineup all season. I'm excited for the Braves for this deal, and he's going to be one of the players that I want to actually watch a lot more of in 2025.
Yeah, that NL East is going to be a bloodbath. I mean, I think it's probably the most stacked division right now, other than the West, the NL West. They're like
one. We can make a good conversation for that, yeah.
I mean, just the star power.
Yeah.
And how deep the lineups are. I mean, you look at Philadelphia, you look at Atlanta, you look at the Mets. The Mets have a pretty decent lineup. Then you have Washington. And then you head out west, you have the Padres, you have the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. And
even the Giants a little bit.
Yeah, and then, you have the Marlins and the Rockies who are just,
They're for fun.
They're they're there.
But
Yeah.
I'll give you that in terms of star power. But in terms of like competitiveness, right now I think the AL Central is the closest division. I think all like the four main teams that are kind of in the running for that division, excluding the White Sox because they have years to work on now, they're all very close in terms of just overall team. Like, we saw the Twins have probably the best roster on paper, and they didn't even make the playoffs. They were the team on the outside looking in. So, I think in terms of star power, yes, the East and the West, head-to-head, definitely. But in terms of competitiveness and closeness of, like, a toss-up of who could actually win that division, I'm giving that to the AL Central.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much star power in the East and the West. It's pretty insane.
Especially with Soto now there, too.
Soto, Lindor, then you had in the East
Harper.
With Harper, Turner,
Wheeler. And then the Braves with Strider, Sale, Cunha, Harris, Olsen, all those guys. And now Profar.
And then you got...
Even CJ Abrams in DC, bro. And yeah, their young core coming up. It'll be a fun division to watch.
Yeah. I can't wait to do our divisional breakdowns later this coming month.
I'm looking forward to that.
Fun. So, I just, dude, the NL East is going to be I feel like it's just going to be a bloodbath, with Philadelphia, Atlanta, and New York just gunning for the top spot in the East. So, it kind of reminds me of how it was in 2022, where Philly was good. Well, Philly got better, but Atlanta was great, and the Mets were great all in 22. So, kind of reminds me of that year. But so, Dylan, we had some big news coming out of The Athletic today that prosecutors had discovered that Ippei Mizuhara, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, who basically stole money for him and spent it with it, basically impersonated Ohtani on a call with the bank to get $200,000 in a wire transfer. Oh boy.
Holy moly, dude. The audio recording got released? Is that what you said?
Yes, it's been released. You can find it on The Athletic. You can listen to it. Personally, I listened to it, and it is pretty bad.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is not good.
How much are they pushing for him now? Like, sentence-wise? I think I saw, 5 years.
I'm guessing 5. I just know he has stole $17 million and...
$17 million?
Yes. What? They've reported. So... Yeah.
This dude Shohei's probably got trust issues now, bro. Oh my gosh.
I would.
$17 million, dude.
A 4-minute conversation, right? If you trying to act like...
I thought it was 5.
What, the conversation?
No, the amount of money.
Oh, no, it's bigger than what you...
Holy cow.
The only good thing this does do is the people who tried to, say that Ohtani just blamed it on Ippei, it clearly released... It
kind of clears his name a little bit, yeah.
You clear Ohtani's name, but, I mean, yeah, this is not good for Ippei. I mean... Oh, my Lord. The conversation...
He's done for.
Guilty as charged.
Bang the gavel, dude. He's done. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, this is not good. But yeah, it was mentioned in the court file, and yes, Dylan, they are looking at a year. Do you think 5 years is too little?
For $17 million, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to push a little bit more. It's not like he just pickpocketed someone. $17 million even for Shohei is a lot of money, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good.
Does not look good for him at all.
It
really is kind of one of those wild situations of off the field mishaps happening. You hear all the time about steroid usage in players and whatnot, even gambling stuff like Pete Rose back in the day or whatnot, but you never really heard a personal assistant necessarily, or an interpreter, someone that Shohei considered probably his closest friend since coming over to the States and whatnot. Just a whole lot of just bad, honestly. There's
how would you feel as a player in a locker room when the interpreter has to speak up while you're overseas starting your season and tells you that, listen, I just stole the best player in the game's money. Like, imagine being in the locker room at that time.
To be a fly on the wall in that room, dude. I can only imagine the conversation.
Like, I really wish someone, like, there was a camera or something. Just so we could, like, just feel the tensions in that room.
I mean, at least we have, like, the audio of this now, so we got something to really go off of, but that's just insane, dude. I feel bad for sure.
I mean, a $200,000 wire transaction? Jesus. Like, how do the banks allow that? Like,
how do they
sign papers?
Like, have they never talked to Shohei before? Like, how is he able to pass himself as Ohtani?
Yeah.
That's fishy to me too. But I mean, that whole situation's just a mess.
I mean, at least clears Ohtani's name, so they're
definitely 100%.
People, not blame Ohtani, and we cannot have Pete Rose say, "Oh, well, maybe if I had an interpreter." That famous
Pete Rose
quote,
is such a clown, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But speaking also about the Dodgers, we got news that Michael Kopech is expected to miss the first month of 2025 with forearm inflammation.
Yeah, that's a hit to their bullpen. They'll be fine though.
No, I mean they got pitching out the wazoo. So
if Michael Kopech was still on the White Sox, I'd say that just the White Sox are done for. But I mean, the White Sox are done for already. Like, have they even done anything really this offseason?
Nope. I mean, the Marlins have done nothing.
Well, fingers crossed for Colson Montgomery and Lou Bob out there, dude. That's all I gotta say. So, we got a big announcement from Monday night. The Hall of Fame class finally got announced. Smaller class this year, but 3 very deserving candidates finally made it in. Well, one of them finally made it in, but we have Ichiro, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner making it to the Hall. First and foremost, round of applause for the fellas. Congrats to them on their wonderful careers and finally being recognized for that. Most importantly, Billy Wagner, as it was his 10th and final time on the ballot. I saw his clip of when he got the call on, I think it was Fox Sports, probably posted or something like that. Just immediately broke down when he realized what the call was for, dude. Honestly, that's what these inductions are all about. So, and I'm a big Billy Wagner fan. As an undersized left-handed pitcher myself, I absolutely love Billy Wagner, and I think it was past due his time to finally get in. I saw on TikTok, actually, now that that's back up as well.
Thank God.
Someone was going over kind of his stats once. They kind of called it quits. He had like the highest strikeout per 9, lowest batting average. There's one other thing that I'm kind of blanking on at the moment, but it was per like a minimum of 900 innings, and the career average was under 182, and the K per 9 I think was at like 12 or something like that, and it took him this long to get into the Hall of Fame. That's absurd to me. But, I mean...
Voters are the voters, man. I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute, but...
He finally got his call, and I think he's going in as an Astro just because that's where he spent the most time, and I think that would just make the most sense to him being inducted as an Astro, because I think when you hear the name Billy Wagner, that's what you more think of. But yeah, really happy for Billy. Really happy that the voters finally gave him the push there to get past the threshold of the 75% mark, 70% mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
75%.
To get into the Hall. So congrats, Billy, and thank you to the voters for finally putting him in. But the first guy of the other two that I really want to talk about is Ichiro, because
absolutely snubbed.
Why was he not unanimous? Why? And who's the voter that isn't speaking up that didn't put him in? In what world do you not see Ichiro Suzuki as a Hall of Famer?
Same thing with Jeter. Remember they did the same thing with Jeter?
Stop. They did it to him, they did it to Jeter, they did it to Griffey too. The 3 people that didn't vote for Griffey, absolute bums, dude. Like, he was the cleanest hitter during the steroid era. I don't care about the injuries or whatnot. If he stayed fully healthy, this might be a little bit of a hot take incoming, but I think he could have gotten kind of close to Bonds' record.
Honestly, even if he stayed fully healthy, but maybe he came in over earlier. He came over at the age of 27.
I'm not talking about Ichiro. I'm talking about Griffey. Like,
okay, I thought you were talking about...
Because Ichiro only had 117 career home runs, dude. He wasn't sniffing Bonds. But
no, I missed... I
mean,
lost.
And talking about Ichiro and records and whatnot, if he came over earlier, could have had a crack at Pete Rose's record for the all-time hits. I know that combining his Japanese league hits, like his MPB hits with his MLB hits, I think it's more than Pete. But yeah, 100%. Like, I think if he started in the MLB rather than coming over at the age of 27, without a doubt, he probably could have had a shot at it. But I mean, I really don't understand how you don't look at his career as a total and say, like, you know what? This guy's not a Hall of Famer. Like, how?
It's one vote, too. It's like...
It's almost like a petty vote. Just to, like, keep him out.
It's a petty vote. It's a petty vote.
You know what? Thank God they didn't do that for Mariano, because that would have been a whole other discussion. But, like, I understand Ichiro wasn't always the flashiest of hitters. He didn't always hit for the most power. He only had, 3 seasons where he hit over 10 home runs. But the dude could flat out hit the baseball. And he's probably one of the best defenders that has been here in the 20th century. He had 10 Gold Gloves? Yeah, 10 Gold Gloves. Won the MVP and the Rookie of the Year his first year over. Like, he's just absolutely ridiculous. He's a monster. And I've seen the videos before of, like, people online talking about, oh, yeah, Ichiro could have hit 35 home runs in the season if he wanted to. He had that much power. The fact that he had that much power and decided to focus more on contact and didn't showcase all that power honestly makes his career that much more impressive to me. Because he just always had that in his back pocket. But he decided to, like, play it the more contact way and be successful in that. Like, the ability to be successful on multiple levels shows how good of an athlete and how good of an overall player you are. And that, honestly, that just makes his career that much more impressive to me. That might just be me, though, but
it's also like he's a stand-up guy. It's also like he's a stand-up guy.
Oh, yeah, he's a great dude.
He never had any media trouble, never went out of his way to, like, make a big story. I mean, he just played baseball. And it's crazy, you know. I think he probably gets close to Pete's record, but, I mean, he came over at 27. Imagine if he comes over at
23, like Sasaki did.
24. Like, I mean, it's crazy. I'm glad that CC got in.
Yes, sir. I saw a lot of people trying to argue and pull up stats of other guys like Greinke, who I'm sure will be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he becomes eligible. I saw people put Mark Burley's name up there, saying that Burley only got like 11% of the vote when CC got into the Hall of Fame just because he was a Yankee. No, dude, like, both of these guys in their own respect were workhorses. Mark Burley, probably, when people talk about Mark Burley, he is like the human pitch clock, basically. This guy would just work through lineups, work through innings, and would be a very valuable part of a rotation. But he wouldn't always have, like, the same numbers like CC would. He would get the outs. He wouldn't walk people. Like, Mark Burley was a really great pitcher. But when you think about Mark Burley, you don't necessarily think about Hall of Fame. When you think about CC Sabathia, it's a little bit different. The guy won a Cy Young with Cleveland in 2007. 241 innings pitched. You don't see that anymore. Like, CC was an absolute workhorse on a team. Like, anytime people talk about the Milwaukee run he had in 2008, I was 2 years old. Obviously, I don't remember, like, watching that with my own eyes. But, like, he started one game and then 2 days later started another game to push them into the playoffs. he was absolutely ridiculous. He was a pure gamer, which is why I think CC has that much more of like an elevated respect in this case from the voters. And he's part of that 3,000 strikeout club, which is so exclusive that I think some of those accolades that he has gives him that extra bump into the Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. But I mean, when it comes to some of those other guys on the ballot that are now there for the long haul a bit, like Utley, Burley, Nomar still on there, like they are great players in their own respect. You probably think so more than I do, but honestly, Utley is probably a Hall of Famer. He has the numbers to back it up.
Dude, I was surprised how much votes he got.
Really?
To be honest, this year. This year I was.
Like a bad surprise or a good surprise?
No, like a good surprise. Like he got a decent amount of votes this year. I mean, he got 40%.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna say something that's gonna piss you off, but you know what really pissed me off? A-Rod's vote total.
Yeah. What are we doing?
He got 36% of the votes. Why is that not higher?
Why? Because now he's like on good terms with everyone. Now he can get more votes.
No, it's because he's one of the best players to play the game, and the stats back that up.
I mean, the stats do, but he did. We're not going to put steroid users in. We can't put them in.
Then why is David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame?
Why isn't Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame?
Exactly my point. How are you going to put one guy that notoriously was using steroids, but he's such a great personality that we can pass by that? Like, come on, dude. You can have it one. I love Big Papi. I mean, I hated having my team face him. I can't say that I faced him because I never did. But I hated having my team face him because he killed us. But Big Papi was a great player and a fantastic hitter in his own respect. Barry Bonds is probably statistically the greatest player that we've seen play the game so far.
I mean,
and he is not worthy of a Hall of Fame? Come on. Yeah. And it's the same thing with A-Rod.
Steroids, though.
It's the same thing with A-Rod. Steroids are not, like, and as much as you can disagree with it, like, steroids and whatnot, the advantage that it had, steroids did save baseball in the 90s because it was dying. But Sosa, McGwire, Bonds, all those guys gave it life because they were hitting absolute bombs. And so I feel like part of the Hall of Fame isn't just necessarily the stats that go along with it, but also the impact that they personally had on the game. So I'm not saying McGwire or Sosa necessarily. Like, they were both great players in their own respect. But when you have a guy like Bonds, who didn't just hit home runs, he was a perennial MVP candidate. He won, 7?
Yeah.
He also had double-digit gold gloves, would steal 30 bags a year, and he was such a threat at the plate that people would intentionally walk him with the bases loaded. And you're telling me he's not a person that can be enshrined in the Hall of Fame with all the other all-time greats of the sport? That just seems wrong. And it's the same thing with A-Rod.
I think it's the way the voters... I feel like it all depends on who's voting.
Right, and the voters have a stick up their butt about this whole thing, dude. Like, it's annoying to me. Like, I saw Bob Nightingale's ballot. He didn't put A-Rod on there.
Yeah, but I like this ballot. His
ballot was okay.
What do you mean it was okay?
I see that people debate about, like, Torrey Hunter and Andrew Jones and whatnot practically being the same player. More people going with Jones than Hunter, which I agree with. I think Hunter's a great player in his own respect. Don't necessarily think he's a Hall of Famer. But I would say Andrew Jones is probably more towards that level. He's probably one of those guys that's just going to barely miss out. But when I look at the numbers on A-Rod, like, he's an undeniable Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time MVP. He's a 10-time Silver Slugger, a 14-time All-Star. And he's top 5 in home runs all time. Just missed the 700 mark. He has a WAR of 117.6. Yeah. The all-time record for wins in a season is 121 by the Mariners. So you have a guy that pretty much makes up that entire season on his own over his career, and you're telling me he's not a Hall of Famer? His impact is so great that he could almost equal the entire team that has the most wins in baseball.
You know who I was like kind of shocked that didn't get a lot of votes?
Who?
Jimmy Rollins. He only had 18% this year.
Jimmy's another one of those guys that's just going to end up falling short, I think.
Hold on. All right. Do you think Chase gets in or no? Yes or no?
I do. I think Chase gets in on like his 7th or 8th time on the ballot.
He's already at like 40, so he's got...
I would say he's on pace right now to get in.
Yeah.
What is it, his second or third year on the ballot?
It's his second.
Second?
Jimmy's, this is his 4th, so...
Jimmy on his 4th at 18? Yeah, I don't see him get it in. And it's not to say that Jimmy Rollins is a bad player at all. Don't get me wrong. Jimmy Rollins is a fantastic shortstop. But I don't see him making the Hall, especially because he's at 18% right now, and this is his 4th go around. If he was around where Utley was at like the 40s, and it was his 4th year, I would say maybe he gets a shot, kind of like Billy Wagner did, in like his 9th or 10th year. But because he's at 18, there's only going to be more players that get put on the ballot that are more deserving than Jimmy is, and Jimmy's just kind of going to get swept under the rug here and get kind of tossed, unfortunately.
Fortunately, he's still a Hall of Famer in my book, so...
Dude, he's in the Phillies Hall of Fame somewhere, I'm telling you. He's a good player, but I think for the guys that were on the ballot this year, the next closest guy is Carlos Beltran. He got 70.3.
Yeah. He's going to make it.
He will probably get in within the next year or two. Andrew Jones was at 66. It was his... Hold on, there's a smudge on my computer. 8th. Okay, I thought that's at 6th at first, but this was his 8th time. He's got 2 more shots. I think he gets it on his 10th. The rest of the guys that are on the ballot here are, 1, running out of time, and 2, pretty much done for. Like Manny Ramirez, he's not getting in. This was his 9th time. He had 34%. Yeah. Andy Pettitte, this was his 7th time. He had 27.9. He's not getting in. Like Bobby Abreu, 6th time, 19.5. He's not getting in either. Vizquel, no way. Like, the one argument that I did see, because Billy Wagner got in, is that people are starting to make more of an argument for K-Rod now. He only got 10% of the vote, which I think is a little bit low for the impact he had. I'd like to see that go up a little bit. But I don't know necessarily if they will. That would probably be the only player that I kind of look at hoping to get a significant boost from this year to next.
Any of the guys on the 2026 candidacy is going to be first ballot?
Let me take a look. Because I did see it.
Now.
I did see it the other day.
I'm not. I don't know. It's going to be.
I know you're going to want Hamels in there.
He's a Hall of Famer.
What?
Hamels is not a Hall of Famer. Won the MVP in the World Series. Was
four-time All-Star, 2008 World Series MVP, NLCS MVP. 58 WAR over the career.
Dude, there's no way you cannot tell me. He's not first. I don't know if he's going to...
There's an argument. There's an argument. But first ballot, I would say no. I would say no.
Okay.
I would like to see Hamels get in because I do think he's a very solid pitcher. But I think it'll be close. I think it'll be close. I think he gets in on like the latter half of his Hall of Fame tenure, like maybe 7th or 8th time if he does get in.
Wait, I don't know about the other guys on this list.
Ryan Braun's not going to get in because of the steroids, even though he was an absolute dog in his early years. But the rest of the guys, I mean, at this point, these are guys we grew up watching, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like Alex Gordon, Shin-Soo Choo, Edwin Encarnacion, Howie Kendrick. Like, those are all guys that were just like, they were solid during their time in the league, but they're not Hall of Famers. They're really not.
I think the biggest one you can make out of this list is probably Cole, I think.
Cole's
think
probably
he
got the best
headlines-
shot out of
Yeah.
this list. I'll agree with you on that. I don't know how much the voters will favor him. So that's my only hesitation with it. Hamels would get my vote. But I don't think he'll make it until, like I said, like the later half of his Hall of Fame ballot tenure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that 2008, that run in 2008 for him, like that year, that year was so beautiful for him.
He was a big part of your guys' World Series run. So I mean, I no doubt understand where you're coming from there, but
like
it'll be close.
Like I'm trying to think of any players that have won the CS MVP and the World Series MVP.
Not off the top of my head, no.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's like a 59 career award. Like, that's pretty good.
No, again, like he definitely has numbers to back him up, but it'll be close.
I mean, yeah, I think, but no, I do agree with you. I think he'll probably get. He's definitely not first.
I would say the 7th to 8th is
but
probably my projection for him of when he'll finally when he'll get in.
I say 5 or 6, but I don't know.
Anywhere from the 5 to 8 range, I think, could be for Cole Hamels. It really depends on how his first 3 years on the ballot looks.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Yeah,
I know you really want him to get in, so I'll be pulling for you from that aspect, but I don't know.
Like I don't know about any of the other guys on this 2026. Like Connor Pence,
I will be shocked if anybody else on that list gets in. The only person I would see is Ryan Braun because he has an MVP, but they're not going to because of the steroids.
Yeah.
Nobody else on that list would probably even come close to getting in.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else on that list, but
yeah.
No, I mean, I'm glad that the Mariners are gonna retire Ichiro's number.
Yeah. Honestly, it's about time. He's been done for about 5 years now. I wish they would do it like on May 1st. I think that would be kind of cool. But it'll be August 9th, August 6th, I think, that weekend when they normally do like their kind of retirement inductions and whatnot. I think that's when they're doing it. So it'll be nice for Ichiro. It'll be a good moment for the Mariners, kind of full circle and whatnot. And they got another guy that's on that ballot that I'm hoping will get in sooner rather than later.
So
I need to see Felix in the Hall, dude.
So this came up on Hot MLB Network today. So it was rank your 5 best teams in the league right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. On the spot too. Shoot. Dodgers are 1.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
I would say right now the number 2 is... I'd say the number 2 is the Yanks.
Okay.
I'll give the 3... Give the 3 to the D-backs.
Okay.
Give the 4 to the Phils.
Okay.
Giving the 5 to the Guardians.
Okay. I got Dodgers, Yanks, Braves,
Okay.
Phils, D-backs.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'm honestly Braves and D-backs probably a good switch there, but
yeah,
I like the D-backs pitching staff mostly with how their team is looking, but the Josh Naylor trade also boosts them for me a little bit since they filled that Christian Walker void pretty quickly. And then for like the 6-7 guys I kind of like just missed, I would say like the Braves are there, and probably the Astros. The Astros or the Royals would be in that 7-8 spot at the moment.
Sounds good. So
yeah, really good episode today. It's pretty good conversations, honestly, and a lot of good topics to go over. A lot of good free agent signings that are kind of moving the market around. And honestly, we're gearing up for spring training and getting ready to kick this season off and really get on the ground running. So, you got anything, Matt?
Oh, just that we're 2.5 weeks away. Getting up towards the Super Bowl. Go Birds this weekend. See, hopefully we can get back, beat the Commanders. But, yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the start of the season. Pitchers and catchers will report in about 2.5 weeks, and it's going to be interesting to see where the rest of the people fall.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch some baseball. Oh, and that reminds me, when we take our spring training trip down to Florida for the baseball team here, the Monday we don't have a game, I'm going to be at Steinbrenner Field for the Yankees spring training game that day, so maybe able to get some content in that day. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, got some plans I'm keeping in mind right now to see if we can have something going on down while we're in Florida. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff coming up soon, and just stay posted on what the free agent market kind of shapes out to be, and once pitchers and catchers report really start to gear up for the season to take off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of extra dominoes to fall, so we'll see where they fall, and I can't wait for the start of the season. So it's gonna be fun. So I can't wait to just have that like spring training baseball where you can put a spring training baseball game on 1 o'clock at the afternoon, and
work on some homework.
So I mean, those are some of the best times. So
with all that being said, for me and Matt, thank you guys for listening once again, and until next time, we'll just be hanging in the dugout. Thanks.